kindness, at first glance, can be disarming. A warm smile, a gentle tone, thoughtful gestures create a sense of safety, of comfort. But after being hurt a few times, you may find yourself wondering, was that kindness genuine or just a mask? It's a question that many adults silently carry. Over time, we learn that not all soft words come from soft hearts. And that's okay. It doesn't mean the world is cruel. It just means people are layered and intentions aren't always obvious. Still, it's easy to grow cynical, to think that protecting yourself means shutting others out. But there's a difference between caution and coldness, between wisdom and bitterness. We don't have to stop believing in kindness. We just have to get better at reading it. Observation is a quiet skill. It takes patience to watch how people show up when they have nothing to gain. It takes clarity to notice whether their consistency matches their charm. Learning to pause before trusting blindly isn't harsh. It's self-respect. You can still be warm without being naive. Still open, but discerning. The goal isn't to harden your heart. It's to strengthen your sense of self so that your kindness doesn't come at the cost of your well-being. As a woman, I've learned that you don't have to choose between being soft and being safe. You can be both. You can protect your peace while staying kind. The world doesn't need us to stop trusting. It needs us to trust wisely, to see clearly without losing compassion. Because true strength isn't built by closing off. It's built by staying open, even when you've learned better. How to tell the difference between a genuinely kind person and someone who's only nice at first. It's comforting to be met with kindness. In a world that often moves too fast and too harsh, those first sweet gestures, a caring word, an attentive presence, a willingness to help can feel like soft landings for a weary soul. But as many adults come to realize, not all kindness is built to last. Some people are only kind at first when it's convenient, when they want something, or when they are still trying to impress. The real challenge is not in noticing kindness, but in discerning its depth and durability. As someone who has both trusted too quickly and doubted too much, I've come to understand that kindness is not just about how someone treats you when things are easy. It's about consistency, integrity, and what remains when the spotlight fades. If you've ever asked yourself, were they ever really that kind, or was it just an act? You're not alone. But there are ways to gently observe and understand without becoming hardened or bitter. Let's explore 5 ways to distinguish genuine kindness from surface-level charm through observation, not accusation. True kindness is consistent between words and actions. One of the most telling signs of genuine kindness is the alignment between what someone says and what they do. In a world where words are easily shared, where compliments can be rehearsed, and promises can be casually offered, it's tempting to believe that kindness is defined by how sweet someone sounds, especially in the beginning. But charm on its own can be misleading. People who are only kind at first tend to put on their best face when it benefits them. They might say everything you want to hear, make promises they believe in at the moment, and shower you with attention when they want to make an impression. Yet, as the novelty fades, or when life gets inconvenient, so does their kindness. They begin missing appointments, avoiding accountability, or ghosting responsibilities they once eagerly volunteered for. Their kindness was never rooted in who they are. It was rooted in what they wanted. Truly kind people don't need to impress you with grand gestures or poetic words. In fact, they often say less and do more. Their consistency is the message. They're the ones who remember the small things you told them weeks ago, who show up when they say they will, who do what they can without expecting applause. Their kindness shows up in quiet moments, in how they listen when you're tired, in how they respect your time, in how they don't promise what they know they can't deliver, and know they aren't perfect. Kindness doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means how someone behaves after the mistake has been made. A truly kind person will own up when they fall short. They won't hide behind excuses, blame others, or pretend it never happened. They'll say, "I'm sorry," and mean it. And they'll try to do better not because they're afraid of losing your approval, but because being responsible is part of who they are. That's what sets them apart. Their kindness is not a performance, it's a principle. It's not just situational or temporary. It's how they treat the people in their lives when things are easy and when things are hard. They don't turn cold when they're no longer the center of attention. They don't withdraw when they're not getting something in return. Their care isn't conditional. It's rooted in respect, empathy, and a deep sense of integrity. When someone's words and actions consistently match, especially over time, that's when you know their kindness is real. And in a world full of short-lived connections and surface-level charm, that kind of consistency is rare, but incredibly valuable. So don't let early sweetness blind you. Watch the patterns. Trust what they do, not just what they say. Because real kindness is quiet, steady, and sincere. And you'll never have to chase it. It will reveal itself again and again in the smallest, most honest ways. Watch how they treat you when there's nothing in it for them. Kindness is easiest when there's a reward, admiration, connection, or even social validation. But the true test of someone's character is how they act when there's no benefit to them. When you no longer bring something to the table, attention, usefulness, admiration, how do they respond? Someone who's only kind at first may begin to pull away. Their warmth may turn cool. They might become distant or even dismissive, especially if they sense that continuing the kindness doesn't serve their personal interests anymore. That shift can be subtle. Fewer messages, less effort, a change in tone, but it's often enough to feel. A genuinely kind person doesn't base their behavior on what they're gaining from you. Even if the dynamic shifts, if you're struggling, changing, or simply not offering what you once did, their sense of respect doesn't evaporate. They continue to acknowledge your worth without needing something in return. That's not because they're perfect or self-sacrificing, but because they value people beyond the surface. True kindness isn't transactional. One of the more subtle signs of performative kindness is when a person expects you to be grateful in a specific, ongoing way. Maybe they do something for you and later bring it up repeatedly. Or perhaps they start to act hurt if you don't return the favor quickly or don't praise them enough. This kind of dynamic can feel more like a transaction than a relationship. People who are only nice at the beginning often keep a mental score. They want to be seen as good, and part of that relies on your acknowledgement of their effort. It becomes less about what they gave and more about how it makes them feel to be appreciated for it. In contrast, those who are truly kind give because it aligns with who they are, not because they're waiting for recognition. They may appreciate your thanks, but they don't require it. Their actions are rooted in generosity, not obligation. It doesn't mean they want to be taken for granted, no one does, but their kindness isn't dependent on being praised. That kind of emotional generosity is quiet, steady, and deeply reassuring. It allows space for gratitude to grow naturally, not out of pressure, but out of trust. Kindness isn't selective. Another way to recognize genuine kindness is by observing how someone treats people they have no reason to impress. Watch how they interact with a waiter, a colleague, a stranger. Are they respectful and polite even when no one is watching? Or does their tone change depending on the person's status or usefulness? People who are only kind when it benefits them often reserve their warmth for specific situations or individuals. Their charm might light up a room full of potential connections, but fade in moments that don't serve their image. True kindness doesn't fluctuate based on convenience. A genuinely kind person holds themselves to a standard of respect across all interactions. You'll notice that they're just as polite to the cleaner as they are to a friend. They don't see kindness as something to distribute strategically. It's simply how they choose to move through the world. This consistency is often subtle, but once you start paying attention, it becomes unmistakable. The way someone treats those they don't need says more about them than any first impression ever could. Real kindness doesn't rush to impress. At the start of any relationship, personal or professional, it's common for people to want to put their best foot forward. But sometimes this initial intensity can be misleading. You might meet someone who goes out of their way to do everything for you in the first few weeks. Grand gestures, constant contact, overly enthusiastic attention. It can feel flattering, even overwhelming in a good way. But in many cases, that kind of fast-track kindness isn't sustainable. When someone is trying too hard, too soon, it might be more about creating an impression than building a relationship. And often, once they feel they've secured your approval, the energy fades. In contrast, genuine kindness is steady and paced. It unfolds over time, not all at once. Truly kind people don't need to prove themselves through urgency. They build trust through presence. Their gestures may be quieter, but they are rooted in long-term care, not short-term reward. You'll notice it in the small things: a check-in after a tough day, consistency over weeks and months, a sense that they are there, not for a reaction, but for the connection itself. Learning to tell the difference between true kindness and surface-level niceness isn't about becoming skeptical of everyone. It's about honoring your own intuition. As adults, we're allowed to take our time. We're allowed to ask, observe, and gently wait for patterns to reveal themselves. You don't need to rush to label someone as good or bad. You just need to stay open, grounded, and clear. When someone's actions match their words, even in the small moments, you'll know. When they treat you well regardless of what they gain, you'll feel it. And when their kindness is quiet, real, and lasting, it won't need to be explained. Because ultimately, you deserve relationships that feel like safety, not suspense. And kindness, real kindness, doesn't ask you to second guess it. It simply shows up again and again without needing to be noticed. Believe in kindness, but bring your wisdom along. At some point in life, many of us have encountered a moment of deep disappointment, the realization that someone we trusted wasn't who we thought they were. The warmth, generosity, and charm they initially offered eventually faded into silence, indifference, or even subtle manipulation. That experience often leaves behind not only pain, but a question: can we still trust in kindness? The answer, I believe, is yes, but only when kindness is paired with discernment. It's easy to let pain push us to extremes. After being let down once, some people start building emotional walls, becoming skeptical of anyone who approaches with warmth. Others, out of fear of repeating old mistakes, begin overanalyzing every gesture, every smile, every "how are you?" But here's the truth. Getting hurt doesn't mean goodness has vanished from the world. It simply means we're learning what real kindness looks like and how to protect ourselves without closing off to life. There's a difference between shutting your heart and opening your eyes. One comes from fear, the other from wisdom. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean becoming cynical. It means staying open, but not unguarded. It's listening to your instincts and your observations, not just one or the other. We've all met people whose actions didn't quite align with their words. The ones who promised much, but delivered little. The ones who were overly generous in the beginning, only to disappear when they got what they needed. If we're paying attention not just to what people say, but to how they behave when there's nothing to gain, we begin to spot the difference between someone who is kind and someone who's simply trying to appear so. In relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, genuine kindness tends to be quiet. It's steady. It shows up in the consistency of someone's actions over time. It's not about grand gestures or flowery compliments. It's about reliability, integrity, and how they treat others when the spotlight is off. Sometimes people believe they're being kind when in reality they're being performative. Their kindness is a transaction. Their generosity, a way to earn favor or validation. These individuals often expect recognition in return. If you forget to thank them once, they may remind you of all they've done, as if kindness comes with a price tag. On the other hand, truly kind individuals don't need reminders of their own goodness. They help because it's who they are, not because they want to be praised for it. Still, even the wisest among us can be misled. That's not a failure, It's part of the human experience. No one is immune to disappointment, but we can grow from it. Every time we misjudge someone's intentions, we gather new data, we refine our instincts, and we develop a more balanced approach, one that's not built on blind trust, but on thoughtful discernment. This is especially important in adulthood, where relationships become more layered and subtle. We no longer operate in black and white. Instead, we learn to sit with the gray areas, the small discomforts, the mixed signals, the subtle shifts in tone that reveal more than words ever could. We learn that intuition is not about suspicion, but about listening carefully to the emotional cues we sometimes ignore. Believing in kindness does not mean being naive. You can give someone the benefit of the doubt while also giving yourself the benefit of boundaries. You can offer second chances, but also know when to walk away. You can be warm yet wise, open yet anchored. This is not about expecting perfection from others, but about protecting the peace you've worked hard to build. When someone's actions repeatedly clash with their words, or when their kindness only shows up in times of convenience, it's okay to step back, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Kindness, when it's real, doesn't need to be loud, and neither does your strength. So if you've ever been told that you're too soft or too trusting, don't let that shame change the core of who you are. The goal isn't to stop believing in good people. The goal is to learn how to tell who they really are, and to remember your empathy is a gift, but your wisdom is its guardian. Let your heart stay open, but let your eyes stay open too. A message to women, gentle enough to trust, strong enough to see clearly. In a world full of charm and curated impressions, it's easy to get swept away by someone who knows how to say all the right things. The kind words, the soft tone, the way they make you feel seen in the moment, it can all feel magical. But as time passes, what really matters is not the sweetness of a single moment, but the consistency of a person's character over many seasons. As women, we're often taught to value kindness, and rightly so. But real wisdom comes when we learn to distinguish between momentary sweetness and lasting goodness. Because not everyone who appears kind at first truly has a kind heart, and not everyone who is quiet or reserved lacks depth and loyalty. The true test is not in what they say, but in what they do when there's nothing in it for them. Being a woman today means learning how to love wisely. It means not giving your heart away just because someone knows how to make you feel special for a day. It means watching how they act when no one's watching, how they handle discomfort, how they treat people they don't need, and most importantly, how they treat you when you're no longer offering something they want. We all deserve to be loved for who we are, not just for what we can provide. But to protect that truth, we must build a quiet kind of strength. The kind that doesn't grow bitter after being hurt, but also doesn't make the same mistake twice. The kind that still believes in people, but no longer gives trust away too quickly. Be the kind of woman who can still see beauty in people, but also knows when something doesn't feel right. You don't have to close your heart. You just have to open your eyes. Trust is not a gift you owe anyone, it's something that should be earned, slowly and honestly. True kindness doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need applause or constant validation. The people who are truly kind don't make you feel like you owe them something for their goodness. They don't keep score. They don't perform generosity like a show. They simply live it quietly, consistently, and without needing to prove anything. If someone needs to constantly remind you of how good they are, it might be time to question why. Because real goodness is like a quiet river, it runs deep, even when it doesn't shout. And those who possess it don't rush to convince you. They let time reveal it. As women, we're allowed to be soft. In fact, that softness is a gift, but it's not a weakness. You can be soft and still draw clear boundaries. You can be empathetic and still protect your peace. You can be trusting and still walk away when your worth is being questioned. The goal is not to harden your heart, but to strengthen your mind. Love isn't about blind belief in someone's words. It's about paying attention to their patterns, their energy, their actions when no one is watching. That's where truth lives. So here's the quiet reminder. Be a woman who loves deeply but not blindly. Be gentle but not gullible. Be open but not easy to mislead. You don't need to prove your kindness by tolerating what feels wrong. And you don't need to hold on to people just because they once treated you well. Kindness is a precious gift, but the people who truly embody it will never need to convince you. Time will do that for them. You just need the patience to see clearly and the strength to walk away when clarity arrives. Let your heart remain open, but let your wisdom guide the way. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.